So I've reached the halfway of clinical training, and you might be wondering, what is training really like? So starting off, let's just set the scene in a bit of context. So I'm halfway through clinical training, and as everybody knows, there's been a pandemic. This has meant that my clinical training has mainly been online. In particular, the teaching, although I've been quite lucky with different placements in that I've been in and having face-to-face meetings quite often. So my training so far, I've done 2 placements. I've done an adult placement and a CAMS placement. I've worked with lots of different people, and I've used lots of different therapy models such as CAT, narrative therapy, psychodynamic therapy, cognitive behavioural therapy, amongst others. And so far it seems to have gone quite well. There haven't been any major problems, which is fantastic. And I've got through sort of all the assignments, which is always great news, because I needed to get used to being a student again. So the first thing I'm going to reflect on, is that initially getting onto training, it felt quite, I don't know, there was a sense of like having to get things just right, and that felt like things were a bit sort of competitive. Like being really keen to help people, you want to do exactly the right thing at the right time, which I suppose you start craving quite a sense of certainty sometimes. Like you want to know exactly what technique to use, what therapy to use, and it's all usually because like you're so keen to help. And there was sort of a general sense that everyone was in quite a competitive mode at the start of training, and like that's totally expected because the route up to training, as you may or may not know, is like very competitive, and you have to jump through so many hoops that it's sort of like your default mode in a way. But as time goes on, you sort of get used to like not knowing absolutely everything, and you get a bit more comfortable with the uncertainty and that you won't get everything absolutely perfect all the time. But as long as it's kind of as long as it's a very good standard and it's good enough, even though it's not perfect, then that's fine, and you sort of learn from the ups and downs as you go through it. And one thing I was sort of reflecting on halfway through training is that I had to, in many ways, I had to learn how to be a student again. Now, some people get onto training and they've come off different courses, or they've not long been off different courses, so they're probably quite familiar with what it means to be a student and all the sort of academic study and writing, that kind of thing. Now, I hadn't been in on any kind of course for a while, so then I had to kind of relearn a lot of this stuff and actually learn how to do things a bit better. And that was an experience in itself, because you've got lots of demands placed upon you, and you've got placement, research, learning, teaching, reading, figuring out what it means to be a trainee psychologist, your cohort, the fact that you're in a pandemic. And so I really had to put sort of some focused effort into sort of what it means to be a student again, and sort of set up different systems around how I take notes and how might use the notes and all. And the course, it has a lot of demands, so as you'd expect given its doctoral level, so making sure I kind of got those things up and running, it did require a bit extra work, but now sort of having passed more than a year, those things have really been quite helpful and have given me a little bit more sort of confidence in how to almost be a good student. You forget the day-to-day realities of what the course will actually look like, sort of lots of reading to do, lots of writing to do, lots of sort of consolidating of information, and just getting used to that again was a bit of a process as well, which I'm not sure if everybody has that, but that's something I definitely went through as a sort of a first year. That sort of it's changed as time has gone on, sort of got more comfortable with that sort of being in the mode of a trainee, as it sort of were. So but it was an interesting learning process. I definitely picked up a lot of things that I didn't know how to do beforehand in terms of certain systems I would work with and use to try and help with my work. The other thing which has been sort of really interesting is the cohort, and my cohort is quite big, and there's just like so many fantastic people on it, and they're all sort of really talented, and they come with such a variety of experience that some people will have experience in one area and then none in the others, and then but as a cohort you've got so much experience in that group, and not everybody comes from assistant psychology roles as well, which I actually think is really important. Having a really big cohort and everyone being really friendly, it means that you can always get an answer to sort of a question if it's not really a course specific question, or if you're worried about something, or if you think something's helpful, you can share it with them. So that's like a really nice feature of having a big cohort who are very sort of welcoming. The other part of it is we've all been online, so I think we've not perhaps developed as a group as other trainee years have. I don't know, we don't really have anything to compare it to, but we're often told that the cohort is the most important thing and you'll get to know each other, and most of the first year we didn't have any, we had very little face-to-face contact, and that was nothing to do with the course. The course were really trying to make that happen, but just with all the lockdowns that we all went through, that just means that a lot of the learning is online, and it just doesn't have that same sort of feel in the room. Not that it's not good, and there's definitely advantages to it, such as not having to travel, but there's probably just a different feel, and I don't really have anything to compare it to, so I don't know what difference that would have made, but it's just something I've noticed. Thinking about sort of the time as training, like it's one of the things that's been really important is about setting boundaries in lots of different settings, really, and in many ways clinical training has felt like an exercise in learning how to set and keep boundaries with yourself, with other people, in your work, your personal life, your work life, other things that you might actually want to do alongside training, and I think that's really good. Sometimes if you've not sort of prioritised things, or if you're not setting them boundaries, you can, from my experience, you can find yourself sort of things can get a bit overwhelming at times, or a bit too much if you're being pulled in lots of different directions, and setting boundaries can help with that, but it doesn't negate against just the total workload that you do have to get through as a trainee. But it's definitely been an interesting process in terms of learning how to do that and how to be clear with your boundaries when you've got lots of things vying for your attention. In terms of boundaries as well, like you think about things like emails and different things trying to pull your attention sort of in every which way. Sort of, do you need to check your emails Sunday night? You might do, you might not. You might get yourself in a bit of a battle about whether you do or you don't, but sometimes things feel very, very important to check imminently, and sometimes they definitely are, and sometimes they're not, and you just feel like maybe you should be working because you're a trainee, or you should be doing this, and sometimes it can be easy to really get caught up in that, and it can definitely make things feel a little bit busier in life from my experience. But sometimes being a bit mindful and looking at the thoughts that you're having and questioning and weighing things up and taking a moment to think about it can definitely help. But when you're very busy and things like that, I find it can be easier to get caught up in some of those things about that it must be doing this and mustn't be doing that. One thing that's been quite nice about being a virtual trainee is that you've had to learn how to communicate and engage with people online, and through therapy, but through giving teaching and groups and things like that, and that is a new skill for many people. I think I'd done some of it before, but it really has developed those skills which, if you want to offer online therapy or teach in the future or do some kind of course online, it's been really helpful. And I think because we've had quite a lot of exposure to that medium of learning and teaching, that you kind of figure out what might work and what doesn't work, and that's been valuable in itself. That's been quite valuable. Well, if you've made it to the video this far, thank you very much for watching. There's just some of my reflections. It's not the whole story, and it's very much just what I've made of it at this point in my training. I might look back on it as something totally different, and other people on training might have had a totally different experience, but there's some of the things that came to mind. So if you on training, it'd be interesting to hear if it's anything has resonated with you, or if you're sort of trying to get onto training, if you had any questions or it sort of provoked any thoughts. It'd be nice to hear from you about those. You can leave comments in the section below. If you like this video or any of the other videos, if you could give it a like and subscribe, that would be great. And I might give you an update at the end of the second year to see how everything's going, and it'd be great to share my journey with you all.